Hello, this is Shelby with Divine Love with Shelby. I I'm a twin flame on this beautiful journey myself, and today I'm going to be having the MFN Magician and the MFN MILF. They are in divine union, and I'm so excited to talk to them. Um, they do a lot of things. They do light language. Let me see. I need to invite them. Very much in their mission work, and I'm really excited to talk to them. You might have seen the Papa Woke. Hi, Candace. Thank you for joining. Yeah, so you might have seen their posts out there. They do light language posts, they do healings, all kinds of things. Hi, guys.
Hello,
Hi.
how are you?
Good.
So
So good to
excited.
have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for having us this evening.
Yes. And for me, it's noon, but for you guys, it's evening. You're in the UK?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 8 o'clock at night our time.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you all here. I love you all. I love you all for being a part of this beautiful journey with us. I'm going to open it up at the end for any questions that anybody has. Is it pronounced Jamyrin?
Jamyrin. Yes.
Jamyrin or Jolene. And yeah, we'll open it up for questions at the end. So if you have any questions, go ahead and click the little question box and we will get to those. So first of all, I wanted to ask each of you to tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Okay, beautiful. You can start, Jill. I'll put you on a hot seat.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I'm originally was born and raised in the UK. I just live in a small town. Uh, Growing up, obviously, I was an only child. Work-wise, I've worked in quite a few different avenues like banking, care, quite a few varieties. Currently, I was working within the transport industry. I have three daughters that are all grown. Um, I've always had like an affinity towards animals and nature. Um, Realized not I had sort of gifts and abilities from when I was younger as well that I didn't really realize that got suppressed until a bit later on with the life. And obviously, Jay's also helped me sort of live them and bring them back to life for me.
I love
Other than
that.
other than that, it's not. I've had quite a, I wouldn't say a turbulent journey, but as a woman and being quite a sensitive woman, being water, I have gone through quite a few ups and downs, and had to sort of heal. And I know at that time, spirituality wasn't really talked about or known, and like the majority of my friends weren't really into it at all, so a lot of it I have had to do like by myself. But luckily, even with Jay not being with me physically at that time, I always felt there was someone there as well, helping and guiding. And then yeah, obviously if I think of things coming along in the way, I'll sort of let you know.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I've kind of always had like been drawn to, just spirituality and just the energy, all that type of stuff. So I had a few transitions. I was originally in restaurant management until I had a hard like reset by the universe that ejected me out of my false career timeline to where I started, moving into starting my own business and different things like that. But it was interesting because I was in a 7-year karmic partnership with someone that was just, they were a great person, but it was just full of lots of lessons. And I kept feeling like, something else was out there, or I didn't feel like complete within my relationship. So I end up coming out of that partnership and really just starting to do a lot of deep healing on myself, spend some time alone, and, of course, attracted a few different lessons along the way. But then it got to the point to where, I did kind of come across like divine unions and twin flames, divine counterpart, like that type of information about 6 years into like one of the longest relationships I've ever been in. And then it started opening my mind up to, and you know, everyone get that curiosity when they kind of come across that information, because I really didn't know much about it. And so, yeah, so I just, you know, did what I had to do on my end to bring myself into alignment. And then the universe kind of brought me and Joe together. And it's kind of interesting how we met, because we are originally from two different countries. So it wasn't like we would have just brushed across each other on the street or anything like that. It was only after I had did, like, from my end of the journey, a significant amount of work to where we both kind of just aligned. And
I did go to Batu Caves in Malaysia as well and speak with the monks.
Oh yeah, you could tell a little bit about that.
Yeah, I forgot. You know, sometimes when people say, "Oh, talk about yourself," it's like, oh, I sort of get a little bit of brain fog. In 2013, I went solo to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. And it's beautiful there. It's very sort of spiritual over there, and they've got a place called Batu Caves, and you have to walk up, must be at least 1,000, if not more, steps to reach this cave. They've got huge like monuments of all the gods and the goddesses and that who they worship. And there's a little place in there where the monks sit, and obviously you can offer them gatherings like food or whatever, because they don't speak, and you can sort of speak to them. So you can sort of write things down. So you did. And at one point I sort of just stood there, and I think it was one of those times when I was like, you know, there's got to be someone out there for me. You know, there's got to be someone that I'm meant to be with that's perfect for me. You know, he doesn't have to necessarily be perfect, but we're just perfect for each other. You know, and by that time I was ready. You know, I'd gone through some of the karmic situations I'd gone through, got divorced as well from a previous relationship, and it's like, I'm ready now. I'm ready to find my person. And I was speaking it, sort of looking, and at one specific time, there was one monk that sort of just looked at me and proper caught my eye, and basically sort of did like a little wink. So it's like he sort of heard, you know. And then obviously when I come back, it weren't. Obviously, I still had a lot of stuff that I was doing, but I do feel that was the start of the journey as well for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting by the time she was doing that, because that was like back in like 2013-ish. That's when I started having massive spiritual awakenings. Like my third eye started awakening, and I started becoming, you know, just started working with energy, or just becoming more conscious of my spiritual awakening journey. So although that we weren't, I'm sorry, my dog is just acting complete crazy in the background, but although we weren't initially ready,
I got chills, so he felt it too.
Okay. Although we weren't initially ready to meet in the physical, her going to it's interesting, because when she was doing all of that type of stuff, I got activated for my awakening journey and different things like that. So yeah, so it was just interesting. But then that was like, I think like 8 years ago. And then like fast forward to around 5 years from the time she did go to those Batu Caves is when I really started having activations to come out of my partnership, or I was starting to feel that someone was looking for me, and it was coming from within, but I knew it wasn't the person I was in a relationship with. And it was driving me absolutely crazy. Just feeling this immense pull on a soul level that someone's trying to call me in or calling my name, but not being able to put a face to the voice or what I was feeling. And then and then I also became a little obsessed, because it was like when you started having these like DNA activations and your person, you're aligning with your person and stuff, and you're having those activations at DNA level, it does cause people to search. But then I didn't really know how to go about looking. So I started, like I said, attracting myself to different connections that was serving as a catalyst for my growth. And it wasn't until I really truly learned how to heal properly to become in energetic alignment.
Yeah, it's like looking for a pin in a nail stack.
And then it's like once I started healing internally, or figured out that process to release different blockages and different things out of my field, is when, you know, I aligned and attracted Joe into my timeline. And then we started our little process. And then once we first initially crossed paths, it took us a year before we could act or ground the proper alignment for us to be able to cross paths in the physical. So yeah, it was a pretty interesting journey.
Definitely. And Hala has said that she loves hearing about the parallels of what each partner is doing, and I love that too. And
yeah.
It's like you do find when you do meet your true twin, when you sort of talk and have conversations, you'll be surprised how much of your life actually mirrors each other.
Yeah.
You know, no matter who, like I come first because I am a lot older than Jay, But it's like when you talk, it's like, well, what was you doing at that age? Oh, this is what happened to me. That's why this happened to me. That's why I was doing this. You know, and you realize it's quite freaky, like how much you mirror each other, even though you didn't know who each other was.
Because I felt like I joke with Joe all the time because she did incarnate before I did, and I joke like, oh, I was sent in to kind of clean up your mess, clean up the mess you left behind for me. And I was like, all those decisions. It's so interesting because all the decisions and everything she went through, it's kind of like my life in a way mirrored the footsteps that she walked.
And I say this time I come first so that you can come and clean it up, so I could have a rest, because I think last time you come first and I had to clean up your mess.
Yeah, it was like I was always kind of, when I really looked at my life, it was like I was always kind of catching up to her timeline. I've noticed I have a few other friends who are in their unions where the divine feminine is older. So I do know a lot of scenarios plays out like that, where in some cases, not all, but in some cases, I do have a lot of friends that are in unions where the divine feminine embodiment is older and the masculine is younger. And I know that there's a lot of stigmatism to along the lines of those type of relationship dynamics, but then at the same time, these type of connections do serve as like some type of gateway to
it's like they say, the ethos of love, isn't it? To just collapse all those societal programming,
those templates,
that you know, that's what it's for, to to collapse the societal programming. You know, what you wouldn't normally do, that's what it is.
Yeah. No, I found with a lot of our things that trigger us in my twin flame journey, it's the exact opposite. Like I need from him exactly what is hard for him to give, and he needs from me so it's like something that we're forced to grow through.
And that is the point of it, you know, and they're the only ones that can trigger those core triggers that need to be brought up to be healed. No one else can do that. They can trigger the little menial or the physical sides of it, but the actual internal core issues, only your person can trigger that.
Yeah. So I have been noticing, I love what you guys have in the background, and I have something very...
we have something similar.
Very similar.
Like, enchanted forest. I love it so much.
And then I'm watching my incense back here, and I'm seeing yours there, and I'm like, oh, wow, I love that.
It's the union timelines, you know.
Yes. All right. So the next question I have is, how did you guys first encounter each other, and what kind of magic was surrounding that?
Well, for me, because it was me that encountered Jay first. To be quite honest, it's something I can't even explain. It's something that literally I think the universe dabbled their hands in, because obviously being based in the UK, I've always been interested in tarot reading and things like that, so I'd look on things. But as you know, Instagram will suggest within your country, you know, so it's like if they're suggesting me pages, it would always be UK pages, you know, never America. And I remember I went to bed one night, normal, you know, nothing else. And then when I woke up the next day, Jay's page was there and come up, and I was just like, who's this? You know, and then it was really weird because obviously I sort of looked and really didn't take any notice, but I seen that he did like tarot, and I was like, okay. So just set the notification for when they're doing anything, like I used to with everyone, you know. And then when he first did a live, it was really weird, because it's like I joined in, and it's like not the physical aspect of it, but the internal was just like, there you are, where have you been? I've been looking for you. And I was like, what is this? Why does he feel so familiar to me? Why do I feel like I know him? Where do I know him from? I know him. And it was like my soul had recognized him and was like, there you are, I've been looking for you. And it sort of went from there. Like I would tune in, you know, just message on the lives, just join in the lives like everyone else would, you know. But there was always a different recognition with him. There was something different about him. Obviously I thought he was cute, you know, like, oh, he's cute. You know, but it was more than that. It was deeper than that. It was just like a knowing, like a, there you are, where have you been? I've been looking for you for God knows how long.
And meanwhile, I was having a reverse King. Can you please leave him alone? King, stop it. I was having he wants attention. I was having like a reverse a reverse reaction or experience. While all this was taking place on Joe's timeline, I had no idea. I was just I got to a point in my journey where I was no longer running from myself and the healing that I needed to do. I had been in several different situations. You know, by the time Joe crossed my timeline, I was kind of like 2 or 3 years out of my relationship that I explained to you, where the universe kept trying to pull me out of that connection. So I was kind of on my own. I finally had like a good grip on my healing. I was very dedicated and focused to my healing. And then I had just pretty much discovered that I did have tarot reading abilities. So I felt comfortable doing group readings and collective readings and live readings and different things like that. And so I used to go live a lot and do reads, and, you know, Joe would join. And, you know, I remember, like, you know, when she would join, I would kind of feel, I would get happy. I don't know why I would get happy, or I would just, I would light up a little bit, to the point to people that did know me all my life could tell that I would get excited when Joe would join. But I just thought she was a cool person. Not knowing that on the other end that she was having all these different reactions, or, you know, having these different experiences. Because by then we haven't FaceTimed or voice note or anything like that. But I used to get really excited. So we ended up crossing paths on one of my lives when I kind of finally surrendered to my purpose and doing like my energy, my purpose for the collective, or wherever that entailed. So then we were kind of exchanging, you know, just.
And I used to notice that he was happy when he used to see me there, and it was weird, because it was like, what we didn't realize at the time, it was like a mirror effect, because obviously he was happy that I joined on. I could feel his happiness inside me, so then I'd become like extra happy as well. It was just
it was so weird. And then it was weird because out of everyone that used to be on my life, something kept telling me, I need to help this woman find her masculine. I need to help her find her masculine. I need to help her find her divine masculine. So it's so funny, because I started getting I noticed that I started getting, without realizing, a little protective over helping her find her divine masculine, which was me. So I used to, when the Scorpio readings used to come up, I used to try to make sure that I was really clear and pulling all the most accurate messages to kind of help put her in alignment to find her person.
And
not knowing that it was me that I was helping her.
We're helping her.
Yeah, it was so funny how that happened and played out. And then I just remember, you know, we were kind of like friends, because we did message a little bit, and I used to enjoy talking to her. And it's interesting because now that once I got to my union timeline, I kind of went back and realized why I was feeling like that, those type of emotions on a spiritual level, not really knowing what I was feeling towards her. But I didn't really want to talk to anyone in my community. You know, I was like, this is my page I have for healing. So when I would feel those things towards Joe, I used to just suppress them and anything like that, because I'm like, well, I'm providing a healing service. I'm not trying to look for a partner in what I'm doing on my lives and stuff. So I just kept killing the thought process of it. And then I just like, I thought we were just going to be good friends. So I'm like, you know, I like talking to her sometimes. And it was interesting because then 6 months after, you know, we crossed paths on my live, it was after one particular live I did. Somehow we just ended up sending voice notes. I have never heard her voice. I have never did a video chat with her. And we ended up exchanging voice notes. And it's like, when I heard her voice for the first time, it's like my body had like a physical, energetic reaction to where I was like, it was weird. Cause I'm like, wow, I was like, she has a lot of fire in her voice. I'm like, it kind of feels like me, you know? And now in my mind, my logical mind was trying to process it, but I was super drawn to communicating with her more. So we, you know, exchanged voice notes for a few. And then we finally kind of built up to the point where we were kind of ready for our first FaceTime or video chat. And we ended up video chatting. And then that's when things really started to kind of play into effect in regards to us getting activated for our union timeline and different things like that. And it was very powerful, because when we FaceTime for the first time, it's like I had just like, you know how like you light candles around your house, around your crystals, and you raise the vibrations of your place. I had just like, you know, kind of set my vibration and tone for my space. And when we FaceTime, it's like how my house felt like smacked me through the phone. Like it's like she mirrored to me my vibration, and it was very overwhelming for me, because it's like she felt like
me. You wouldn't look at me, it was just looking
everywhere. Yeah, she felt like me, and I could not look her in her eyes to save my life. So the whole time I was talking, and it's not like because I was nervous, but it's just like I think a part of my spirit wasn't ready to look my direct reflection or my direct mirror in her eyes. So the whole time we would talk on a few FaceTimes, I would literally be looking at the wall, talking or looking down. And she's like, look me in my eyes, my eyes. And then one day we were like, all right, I think I'm ready to kind of look you in your eyes. And when we made that initial eye contact, it's like it triggered the biggest dark night of the soul I've ever experienced in my life, where like all these hidden shadows, and I'm like, I did so much work on myself and I thought I was in a good place, but I think Joe was the only person that could have brought up that additional healing, that I needed to do. So all these shadow selves and all this pain and all these dark and dense emotions just came to the surface, and I had like a 4-month ego death. It was like one of the most excruciating, painful experiences, to the point to where I couldn't really talk on the phone with her anymore, because I'm like, you brought up all this stuff, and it's like I was double pain channeling, because I was feeling my own imbalance, but then feeling how, because she was like my emotions, feeling that emotional imbalance through her. So like it became very painful for me to FaceTime her, to where I kind of started distancing myself a little bit from communication, until I was able to kind of withstand being in that frequency of each other's presence. But yeah, our journey, it took us about, so after that 6 months we crossed paths. Then 6 months we started kind of video chatting and voice noting, communicating, and then it took us 6 months from that moment to anchor our physical timeline of our union, to where I was able to collapse, like my life in the United States collapsed, and I kind of got ejected.
The plan, I mean, the original plan was for me to go to the States, but then obviously with COVID, when obviously the travel restrictions were lifted a bit, it was easier for Jay to come here, because he could come here and just show like a negative COVID test, whatever. But for me to go to America, I'd need to be vaccinated, which obviously we didn't want to do. So it was just easier. But then at the same time, I feel that was the plan all along.
The universe had that.
The universe. That's the plan the universe had all along. It's like we might have had our plan, but they were like, no, actually, it's going like this.
Because I wanted to move Joe.
This is where you're going.
Yeah, I wanted to move Joe to America, and it's interesting because at one point, it's like I had to have faith, because I had a few long distance connections that kind of went a little. I didn't have the greatest experiences from them when I was in the process of trying to align to Joe. So I was super turned off or super closed off. And I'm like, and these were just connections in the United States. And I'm like, and you're in another country? I'm like, I don't want to date anybody out of the country. I'm like, my in-house connections didn't work. What do I look like dating someone there's a whole ocean? So I was a little resistant at first. Like my logical mind kept trying to process it, to where I kind of was like, just resisting in different ways. And then with the whole COVID thing, with the travel restrictions, that was something else my logical mind was like, and then I'm like, I can't even go over there. Because at one point there was no traveling in and out from either country. So like my logical mind kept trying to make me feel as if, my logical mind kept trying to make me feel as if, like, was it even worth, exploring the connection, but it's just something within me just kept kind of, my higher self just kept kind of like, kept me anchored and grounded to keep, just to see it through. And then I got to the point to where I started receiving, because our connection used to freak me out, because it was so intense, and
it'd be saying all kinds, are you a witch? What are you doing?
She always knew what I was thinking or how I was feeling. And so I'm like, I used to talk to my friends. I'm like,
is she thinking your phone?
And my friend was like, maybe she tapped your phone, because she used to always text me how I was feeling or what I was doing. And I'm like, how is she doing that? And then, so it would freak me out. And my friend was like, well, maybe she tapped your phone. I'm like, well, maybe she did. I was like, we were trying to figure it out and stuff, but then it just got to the point to where, like, Joe was, with her being older, she was kind of like the most maturest experience I'd ever experienced in a relationship dynamic, which that helped me kind of feel safe. Because I did date a lot of younger divine feminines, who weren't kind of ready to embark on just this aspect of the journey, or because they weren't my direct person, they used to emotionally reject me or be resistant to resistant to the connections I had with them. So I was a little shut down, but I was worn out from looking for her. I spent 3 years looking for her. So by the time she came in, I was kind of worn out, from like, because I already knew about twin flames. I knew about divine counterparts and stuff, but I think I was just worn out. And it's interesting because when I finally decided to take my power back and to focus on myself and to just let the concept of it go and to just be content, is like literally the universe, because they knew I was probably going to go down a timeline I wasn't supposed to. They kind of sent Joe right in to start the process of our merging process. And so the year that we were kind of in communication, we were like experiencing our merger process. And then once we got in that direct communication, the energetic merger process started to speed up. And then so I noticed that, like, it's like I started noticing that I was like kind of like on a fixed path. Like my path was very fluid at one point, and then it got to the point where I was on a fixed path that was literally walking me to her timeline. I have never been out the country before. I've never even had a passport. I actually got a passport for this reason of coming over here. I've never been to the UK, so I was really nervous about a lot of those different things, but my higher self in the universe just kept giving me signs that I was safe, that it was okay for me to come over here. I thought she was going to harvest my organs. I didn't know what was going on. So I was asking, I used to just ask all kinds of questions just to hear her voice vibrations to kind of see like, okay, does it sound like she's lying? Is she going to try to kidnap me? You know, is this a joke?
Are you going to sell me to the sex trade?
I was like, I'm cute. Are you going to sell me? I used to just ask, I used to interview and ask all kinds of questions because, you know, Sagittarius. I was being difficult, but you know, it's weird because on my end where I was having a little bit of confusion, my higher self kept intervening, and I noticed because my higher self has never stepped in like that when I was either pursuing a connection or where something was present in my face. But my ancestors, my guides, my higher self constantly was like communicating with me, like, no, Jake, this is what you've been looking for. This is the connection. Pursue this connection. Pursue this person. What are you doing? Like when I would try to go off the timeline of our union timeline, where are you going? What are you doing? No. And I was like, I would get picked up by the back of my collar and they would put me back on a timeline with Joe because I was just confused, you know, and I was trying to protect myself because I had a lot of wild experiences in the process of what I went through in other connections looking for her. So I just, you know, was just trying to keep myself safe. But for the most part, it was one of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever experienced in my life. And it was interesting because I did, you know, the process of calling in Joe, because when I was trying to look for her, I had a lot to heal. When I was looking for Joe without doing that inner work, that's when I would attract myself to various situations that used to be serving as some type of catalyst for me. But for the most part, like, I had to face everything within myself. Like, I'd be trying to explain to people, it wasn't like the universe just gave Joe to me on a silver platter. I literally had to heal from a masculine's perspective and really dive deep within myself. It was a very painful experience. Like, I was literally collapsing and doing intensive shadow work for several years and just getting everything out of me and facing myself. And it's like, you know, for me to have done all that work and not like the universe brought Joe in as some type of reward, but it just felt very calming and very rejuvenating that all that time I spent alone facing myself, healing from my union, not knowing who my person was, not knowing where to start, you know, is that like all that work did something and it manifested and put me in the proper frequency to from which I realized I pulled her into my timeline, you know, because I was ready to receive the connection where I got as far as I could to where the universe was like, all right, we're going to send Joe in to kind of expedite and speed up the remainder healing that you need to do to properly, because it was so intense to where I couldn't look her in her eyes. And then now, because I realized that we had to get all that stuff out. So when we physically came into our union, we will be able to withstand the frequency of our union and not run from each other. So yeah, which was some of our experiences.
So any questions that you have, there's a question mark box at the bottom. Just go ahead and click that and we will get to them at the end of the interview.
Okay.
So, yeah, and it's crazy. I know so many twins that met through Instagram. That's where I met my twin.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Hala and David met. They actually met on a live just like you guys.
Oh wow, that's so funny.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre. It was the last place I would have thought that I would have crossed paths with my person. But it just shows for me how the universe kept trying to get me to, because it's interesting because I kept trying to walk away from what I was doing on Instagram, my spiritual stuff, and I kept trying to go back into, you know, getting a regular job, a 9-to-5. And every time I would go in that route, the universe would intervene and pull me out of those jobs and push me to go back into doing my online work. And so it's because that's how they had orchestrated for me and Joe to cross paths. But if I would,
because there's no other way we would have.
Yeah,
you know, it's not like we're going to bump into each other downtown in Detroit or downtown in the UK because we're both in separate countries.
Yeah,
so it would have to be online.
Yeah, so it's just really interesting how that happened. And
so
once I like surrendered, it's like I was just, and so for like a lot of people, as long as you're just owning your path and doing what you got to do for yourself and focusing on your growth, you and your person will just bump into each other in the wildest of encounters. But it's interesting because even when we crossed paths, I off the rip, I didn't even know that I had already, that my person was in my life, because the universe didn't reveal it to me until 6 months after we initially crossed paths. But she was already in my life in some way, shape, or form. So I think the universe was ready for me to, because in that additional 6 months and when she first crossed paths, I still had a lot of deeper healing to do. And it's like once I was kind of ready, the universe just literally just brought us and kind of meshed us together. But I'm happy that they did it in the form of us as us being friends first, because it allowed us to kind of build a genuine connection before we went into like, oh, well, this is your person, Jay. You know, so we already had some type of friendship built, moving into, or some type of friendship foundation established before we moved into those higher levels. Like, all right, well, this is your divine counterpart, you know, kind of type of thing. So it's kind of interesting.
So who brought that up first? Who realized that you guys were each other's person? Joe, you realized first? Or
I think it was I think we sort of kind of come to the realization together, you know, because it's like after the speaking and how it was, we'd be like, this feels different, and we'd both be the same. And it's like, you know, could it be, you know, we need, you know, and we sort of both delved into it a bit, and I think delved into it together. And I think we both kind of come to the real, I mean, I knew he was something special. Like I'd say to him, there was something about him. I felt drawn to him. I felt like I knew him from before. I just felt like I was meant to be with him. He's who I've been looking for. And then obviously with obviously the things he was experiencing, it's like we both sort of come to that realization together, like, this is it.
Yeah, because it would, okay, how I came for what happened to me, because I've always, especially when I had a lot of codependency things I had to heal along my journey, and being emotionally grounded, you know, just with a lot of the different wounds that, and like a lot of the healing I had to do. So what ended up happening was I used to always, you know, especially because I was, you know, when you're looking for your twin, you get excited, you get into a connection, you think that's it, so you just dive right into it. I used to attach myself too fast to people. So by the time Joe came in, I had finally got to a very stable place within myself to where I was no longer operating off of those behaviors. So I was trying to really take this the first time I was actually taking my time to get to know someone, and you know, all that type of stuff. But it was interesting because what would happen was sometimes, you know, we would have different transitions to where I would, you know, resist connection, and I would say things that may have necessarily hurt Joe's feelings, or, you know, cause some type of emotional reaction with her. But then it was like I would do that to her, and then it would instantly bounce back and hit me, and I would feel it on a soul level. Like it's like I was hurting myself energetically in a sense. And that happened a few times to where I started paying attention. Like, why? How she feel affects me? It was like little subtle stuff started happening. I'm like, I've noticed that like how she felt was impacting how I felt, and I noticed that we did have a strong connection, or communicating with her was something I like, the frequency of it, and how the frequency of our connection felt. It was something I've never felt before. Like it was just like she felt like me, and I've never experienced that when I was talking to other people, but she felt exactly like me energetically. And her voice used to freak me out because it's like I could hear my voice or hear my spirit speaking through her voice. So that used to freak me out a little bit. So it was like a lot of subtle signs that I couldn't ignore. Even when I even knew that I started like, I'm like, you know what, is this my divine feminine and stuff like that? I wanted sign your signs from the universe, because I'm like, I was spontaneous, but I'm like, I'm not just about to pack up or just jump into something just because I had learned those lessons. So I was really actually like just trying to apply what I learned. But the universe was like, no, Jay, you know, kept instructing me, this is what you've been looking for. This is the connection. This is it. You know, go for it. Go for it. I kept getting that from
even like I said, to the point where he would say things, you know, that might hurt me. You know, his guides and his spiritual team would be so angry with him.
They would intervene.
They would really be angry.
It was weird because my guides, and that they never intervened on any of my connections before. So I was noticing all this outside influence from the universe trying to get my attention. Like, no, Jay, like this, you know, don't hurt yourself. You know, like stop hurting yourself. Or something like that. So this is one of the biggest things that I felt like I had to learn on my lesson, which is why when I was trying to call Joe into my timeline, I really wasn't ready. And I'm thinking that the universe is trying to stall it, or something's going on, or I'm being punished or something like that. But really, they were trying to allow me the time to really build an emotional relationship with myself. So when they brought my reflection in, I wouldn't hurt myself through the connection or sabotage it, because I hadn't built a strong, healthy emotional relationship with myself. Which is why as soon as I got to that interval, they instantly brought her in. But yeah, so we kind of came to the realization simultaneously, because it just got to the point to where, you know, even at times when I was really just trying to focus and heal myself, I would kind of come out the connection. I would be super drawn back towards her, or I couldn't get her out of my head. I couldn't get her out of my thoughts. I couldn't stop thinking about her. And I'm just like, what is going, why do I feel this strong connection with this person that I've never met? And I used to always ask, like, what are you doing? Like, why do I just feel you so much in my aura? Like, what's going on over there in the UK? That's not like, so it just got too loud for me to where I couldn't even no longer ignore the connection. And then we just kind of started surrendering to it. And I remember to when we both had enough. Well, I had Joe was very calm about it, which I appreciated. But once I had enough realizations on my end, we both kind of entered that surrender stage, because now we were at the surrender stage of like, okay, we still had to navigate through the travel restrictions of, you know, neither one of us being able to travel to each other's country. So we were just in a surrender stage, and we just gave it up to the divine and the universe. And then everything just kind of lifted in its own little way. And then it's like a portal opened in my timeline for me to exit that timeline to jump over into this timeline. And we've been in our physical union. It's coming, our anniversary kind of is coming up on a year now. September 23rd is when I flew over here last year. So we've been on our physical union timeline for a year now, almost a year now.
I love that. I love that. I was going to ask you that too. So, since you've been in your physical union, have you had any of these things that you still need to heal come up, and how have you worked through those together?
Yes. I mean, I think you're always going to have stuff coming up. We do, obviously, because we're both sensitive as well. So Jay will feel like a lot of the collective as well. So we will have little transitions, because there are little shadows that can be lying to do with anything. Like I would have like little things come up, like rejection, or feel like something he said, I'm thinking, oh, why are you being mean to me? So there is just little things, it's just little things that come up that would in any relationship, but it just, with yourself and your reflection, it just feels like 1,000 times worse.
More intense.
It's more intense. And, we do go through little issues, like times when we may sort of be in the same house but in different rooms for a little while, whilst we're just working through the transitions. And and
so basically what happened, once we physically aligned, we started experiencing deeper levels of our soul merger. So it was almost like anything that was like kind of stagnant within us, it couldn't hide. Like the frequency of our union was like bringing different things, because we were kind of merging into one person. So,
and that's hard in itself, because you've got to think, you're the same person, but you've both lived completely separate lives, had different experiences, gone through different stages, and you're literally just like, boom, bang together. And then you've got to sort of merge and get to a point of coexisting together.
Yeah, and merging those timelines. So we in the process of our merger process, because like it's like it's what I really love, because what I've learned through experience was like everything that I've learned in regards to honoring my alignment and grounding myself and learning how to do that inner work to release different emotional blockages. Because in the process of me being in the physical presence of Joe, let's say if I was at home by myself and I had something healing out of my solar plexus, and I'm like, oh, no problem, I can go take the time to balance my solar plexus, bring myself in alignment. But with me being in the physical presence of Joe, and let's say that, for example, that I was having that same type of dynamic happen where I'm balancing my solar plexus, it'll be more intense because we are on the same frequency. But at the same time, it offers a lot of growth, because it's kind of like, I'll feel like, it's interesting how like I'll feel in our alignment, when something needs to collapse, or I'll feel something first. I'm like, ooh, I think we need to work on our root, or we need to work on our throat, or we need to do this. And then I'll break it. And then Joe will release, she will emotionally release whatever I like collapse within our alignment. And so it's just like, it's been a very beautiful merger process, because we've activated suppressed gifts within one another. We like, it's interesting. Like, it's such a beautiful process that took place. But it's like when you come together, there is deeper work or deeper healing that needs to take place.
It's not always easy
on a soul level, but it's going to offer you a lot of growth, because the both of you are triggering one another to kind of reach that highest aspect of yourself. But it's like
they say, it's a sweet dream or a beautiful nightmare. You can't, there's no grey area in between with these relationships. When they're good, they're absolutely great, but when you are going through stuff, it's painful.
It's taking me twice as intense, because you're on that same frequency. It's just like, if my frequency would have dropped today, Joe it's like I could have the potential to pull Joe down with me, because we're on that same vibration. But then it's like, at the same time, we rise together, which is why I like these type of connections versus like with my connections with my karmic partners. Because like, you know, when you start healing and you start, and they're in the same vibration, you have that vibrational disconnect. But it's like Joe follows me wherever timeline I go, which is why I'm like, oh, so it's like it's a relationship based on the relationship you have ultimately with yourself, internally. And one of the biggest things that has helped me to stay grounded on my union timeline was because of all the knowledge and experience that I've gained prior to coming into my union timeline, and how to do that inner work of myself, that inner emotional alchemy, pulling blockages out of my DNA, or just clearing things out of my field. That has really helped. And it's like, let's say, for example, something comes up, it's intense for us, and it's like, you know, we may go into a separate room or something. But then as soon as those energies are cleared and we're back on the same frequency, you'll be drawn back together to each other like magnets, you know.
We're literally together 24/7.
Yeah, and we
always together.
And I could never spend just 20, but it's like, it feels like I'm just with myself. That's why it doesn't even feel like at times I'm even with. It feels like now, especially with me having to leave my country and come somewhere else, it feels like I'm just suspended in the world with myself. You know, it's beautiful and it's interesting, but that's how it feels to me. Where it feels to me like my emotions in my body came to life in another person. Joe always feels how I feels, and it's just, that's how it just feels for me. For like, from a master's perspective, like my emotions just kind of came to life in a way.
I love that. So you guys, do you want to share a little bit about what you do? I know that you both do light language and different healings, and you do the tarot and
I do. My main thing right now is light language. It's a gift that I had as a child, not realizing at the time. Obviously, like I said, being an early child, I used to have a lot of time to myself. So I used to play a lot by myself with dolls, and I used to always have this thing of pretending that I come from another country or talking a thing, and not realizing at that time what it was. And at the same time, not realizing, even as a child, I was kind of manifesting, but not realizing. So that's something I've had as a child. Then obviously, as I've grown up through teenage years and that, like you do, it's sort of become quite suppressed. And it's been suppressed for very many years. And it wasn't really until I come back into, obviously, connection with Jay that it started sort of bubbling back up, like it activated it. And we were doing something, I was like, do you think that's what I do? Do you know what I mean? And like, we'd do it and things like that. And he'd be like, like the first time I ever did it to me, he was like, what did you just do?
It was so interesting because I've never even known anything about light language. But when we was on the phone in our kind of like pre-merger stage, she was like, you know, she was telling me about it. So I'm like, all right, you know, just say it. You know, say what she's like. It sounds a little good.
Yeah, because at first you're kind of embarrassed because it's like,
I'm like,
you sound like you're just chatting gobbledygook, you know. And it's like, okay, so I did it, and he obviously
and so when she spoke it to me the first time when we were on FaceTime, it's like whatever was like, I had something in my, I think either my sacral or my solar that I was working on, and it just instantly cleared. And I'm just like, what the fuck did you just say? And I was like, because it literally had like cleared and brought these energies out, and it just dissipated. And I was like, that's powerful. And I'm like, what is that? And she's like, I don't know. So then we end up finding out, like, oh, you speak light language and stuff like that. And
which I feel like I say now, obviously coming more into it, I feel like, like when you're applying for a job or something, they say, oh no, what's your first like language? And most people say like English or Spanish or French or German. I feel that light language is actually everyone's first language. I think light language is our first language. It's our energy language, our ancestral language. It what speaks to our energy beings, which is what we are, just energy beings. But then obviously when we incarnate down here, that is then our second language. But for some, it just lies dormant within like your DNA, whereas for some, it gets reignited. But I feel it is within everyone. It's everyone's first language, and it is within everyone.
So then I had just on my end of the journey, I had like little gifts, that I had. So where I went into doing tarot, energy work, just all this different stuff, Reiki, all this stuff. So then when I came over here, Joe ended up activating my ability to do light language. And now I use that in combination with I offer different mentorships with people. I have private mentorships. I'll be doing mentorships to help people clear generational trauma, clear trauma around abundance, and help them to liberate themselves emotionally. I do all kinds of different stuff. And then I also
activated me more for like tarot skills, because like we said you're the same person. So what skills you have, I have, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just reawakening them. So I sort of do that. We'll sort of look at cards, and you know, one thing with Jay is like, you know, I don't want you to learn by the book, you know, because it can mean different things for everyone. You know, I want you to learn intuitively. Look at the card. How does it make you feel? What do you see? And it's true, because there's many times, like even when Jay looks at cards, and I'll see so much stuff on the card that like Jay will be like, I've never noticed that. I've never seen that in the whole time I've had these cards. I've never seen that. And that's why he says, you see, this is what I mean, because it can mean one thing to me, but it can mean something completely different to you. You need to go by how you feel. So at the moment, I'm sort of going through that process as well, as sort of like learning the cards, how they make me feel, writing it down, learning sort of the basics, like from what people say, but then at the same time, just learning my own kind of style and learning, you know, how they physically make me feel, emotionally make me feel, what I see, sort of learning from the images that I see. And that's it. We've just been activating each other.
It's part of our merger process right now, because we're being pushed to kind of go into our mission and our purpose of why we incarnated at this time. And so I just kind of been but Joe activated me for light language, so now I kind of have like this little light language academy to where I'm working with different people privately to where they receive activations to enhance, because a lot of these people already have the ability to speak light language, but I think a lot of people are nervous about diving into it. So I have these different programs where I work with people for a month and help them to really dive into feeling comfortable speaking their light language and activating their dormant gifts that they have, and then creating a space for them to practice doing activations for themselves if they want to go into doing healing work and activations on other people, or even set up their own light language business or anything, or to assist with the collective shift. I have programs set aside for people like that, and I'm working with a few people privately right now.
And I have my light language shop on Etsy that you know, we load activations on when we can feel stuff coming up or something we feel needs to be there for people to obviously purchase and download, and just listen to as much as can to help sort of clear out and activate the DNA, and sort of help them, assist them through certain transitions, or you know, helping them release certain wounds or things that come to the surface emotionally for them to release.
So right now, one of the major components with us is that our higher selves are kind of pushing us to go deeper into, hold on a second, King, what are you chewing on? Our higher selves are pushing us to go deeper into our mission timelines, and this interview is a byproduct of
and supporting twin unions.
Yeah, supporting other people in their unions.
Like we said, you know, there's always like information online or wherever for people wanting their union, what to do to get to your union, separation. But there's nothing really there to support post when you're in your union, because that's when the true journey begins.
Really, that's really when it begins. So we want to help people at all types of stages, whether it's pre-union, getting to that physical meeting part, and then when you're actually on your union timeline. So we've been being pushed to kind of really support people and support other people, and I've helped quite a few people.
Like we say, you know, it's like we feel sometimes the twin flame union is so romanticized. They make it's such a beautiful love story. You're going to go through the pain, then when you get together, you're going to skip off into the sunset with little flowers petting, little fluffy bunnies running along. No, you're not.
That does kind of happen.
Yeah, but it's like sometimes you're going to feel like you're walking in the pits of hell as well. You know, it's not all great. Yeah, it is the most amazing love story that you will ever have. You know, being with yourself, it really is. But it's not always easy. There is a lot of stuff you go through, and we want to be there to just be authentic and show people, you know, everything you're going through. It's not just you. We've all been there. We all go through it. No one's exempt from it. You have to do the work. And we want to be there to help and support and show the real, true authenticness of it as well, and be there to support through the good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly.
Yeah, because it's a major transformation on a soul level. And it's beautiful because it's like you and your twin are setting each other free, you know, especially from whether it's societal programming, the grip that the Matrix has had on humanity is like breaking those constructs and really just stepping into.
Because, you know, you can all have bad days, and we can look in a mirror on the wall, but when we're ready, we can turn away from that mirror and just carry on about our day. But when your mirror's there in front of you and it ain't going anywhere, You know,
No.
there's times you're like, you know, because you have to face yourself, because they're not going anywhere. They're like in your face 24/7. Na, 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 na. You know, you can't walk away from them. So, you know, it's yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So let's see. I think we answered all of my questions. Should we go to the questions? Looks like we have 4 questions here.
Okay. Yeah, let's get those.
Okay. So when you record a specific clearing, okay, let me start over. When you create a light language recording for a specific clearing or activation, do you simply set the intention and see what comes through?
Yeah, you've set the intention. I normally will set the intention, and then it's just like I said, what needs to be said will literally, sometimes it's not, you don't even feel like you're thinking about it. You'll set the intention, and then it will literally just come out.
The codes will come out.
And with me, I know when to stop. I have a sign. It's really weird. I've noticed, for me, I know when it's been done, and that's all I need to do. I will see a door. And that's like my sign, right? You've done what you need to do. That's the intention set. You can stop now.
And then everybody speaks and connects with light language differently.
Yeah.
So everyone does it differently. But yeah, like even like for me, because like I'll do with like a lot of my stuff and my like light language has definitely helped me kind of speed up a catalyst process and bringing that immediate results to creating change. A very powerful process to do that inner alchemy with like my clients, to kind of shift them and clear those blockages out, to ground them in a higher alignment. But yeah, you'll just set the intention for whatever it is you want to clear. Sometimes, let's say for example, when I'm doing like my healing work with people, I'll start off as like, okay, we're going to collapse and clear out these energies of why you feel betrayed, and I'll start doing activations for that betrayal. But then as I'm diving and pulling those layers, then I'll fill up something that like, oh, okay, so then there's sexual trauma coming up, and then I'll switch the codes over intention while I'm creating that betrayal code to then address sexual trauma. And then something will come up where like, you know, oh, but then there's something that needs to be cleared out the heart, and then I'll feel, okay, now I need to switch and do the heart. So it's, everyone connects with it differently. It's basically how it operates for you, and just being comfortable and expressing
and just
yourself.
being open to receive it as well.
Yeah. So when it first started coming through for me, I felt like I was making it up or something, but then I'm like, this isn't how I would make it sound. So I know it's real, you know? So it just took me like getting confident with it and
that's the thing.
safe.
Everyone speaks and sounds different with it. You know, how I might sound and speak, it's going to be completely different to you, you know, but it's still the same thing. You know, it's still exactly the same, and it's still going to work the same and still do what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I first before I ever started, when I first came across a video and I watched it, I was like, whoa, that made me feel all kinds of things, like, you know.
Yeah. I love light language so much.
Yes, it's so beautiful. So the next question, these are both from Hala, by the way. Hala Bayer. Do you have periods where things settle and the activations die down for a bit because you're integrating? And did you wonder if anything was wrong because it suddenly became less intense?
So for example, like I probably have like over 200 something codes on my phone that I've just either created, whether it's for our shop or other people or even for myself. And I'll have some type of codes. Let's say for like a code I made like 7 months ago to clear something like that. When I go back to listen to that code, I'll still feel the effects of that code. But they probably won't be as intense of when I first heard it, for when I first needed it to get to that layer to integrate it, but it'll still cause different shifts within my energy bodies. There is like, so like for example, when I'm working with some of my clients and I give them activations through the phone, or let's say I was doing something along the lines of heart chakra healing, and then they'll do that heart chakra code. Let's say someone shut their heart down, and then I did the activation code for helping them to reopen their heart up. Right then and there, though, the code will start integrating, and then all the emotions or whatever needs to clear out of their field that caused them to suppressed or shut down their heart will start to surface and close out, which is why I be explaining to people that it is going to bring different emotions to the surface, or you're going to start to purge or release those energies as you're integrating them over the next several days, but to try not to attach an identity to what you're releasing so that those energies can move out of your energy field. So
it can be instantaneously, or it can take, like Jay said, a matter of a few days, even to a week, for it to fully integrate and come out. So I think sometimes when people first listen to it and like they might not feel nothing, they might think, oh, it's not worked, and then like 3, 4, 5 days later, they might be crying into their pillow or wanting to scream, and not realizing that's the actual language that's come in and it's clean through and energetically now releasing.
Yeah, and everyone has different sensitivity levels, so everyone feels energy differently. Some people feel it more intense. Some people may have not feel it more intense, but it still goes through to do exactly what it needs to do to.
Some feel it more. Some people can feel it physically as well, not just
she
emotionally.
said, okay, she said she meant more so. Re-ask the question, because I think it says she meant more so within our relationship.
Yeah, she meant more so with your relationship dynamic. Okay, so in your relationship dynamic, do you have periods where things settle and the activations die down for a bit because you're integrating? And did you wonder if anything was wrong in your connection because things were less intense?
Not necessarily. No. There's times where we'll do light language activations on each other just to kind of, as far as like energetic maintenance or anything like that. Or Joe speak and make codes for me. I'll make codes myself or do codes for her. Because sometimes it's just more, it's more powerful when sometimes, you can do healing on yourself, but then when someone else is healing from the outside in, it's a different effect. But there are times where, we will create codes for ourselves. And it'll just clear out whatever we need to clear to get to the next timeline.
Yeah, like especially if there's something like we're collapsing and it's a heavy one that, we could maybe just normally with light ones, we might just be able to do it ourselves, but this one's a bit heavier. So it'd be like, oh, can you help me, Jay? Or, oh, can you help me, Joe? Do you know what I mean? And we'll just sort of try and get to it and get it cleared more quickly. But we've never felt like the intensity sort
of our connection.
Yeah, die, no.
If anything, it's getting more intense in a positive way, because now that we have cleared out a big bulk of a lot of stuff, we feel each other more. Or it's like, that initial flame, that spark, if anything, it's like it's able to kind of spread more between us both.
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, you do sort of get used to the multidimensionality of it all, but there's still things that you see and you learn every day. There's still something different. We'll learn, be like, oh my God, I never knew that. Or something that, did you just think of that? And we've noticed as well, since we've been together, our telepathy is getting really strong.
Yeah, really, very, very intense. But
every minute we're like, get out my head.
Yeah, but they're definitely being with your counterpart is going to be a multi-dimensional experience. Y'all are always going to be shifting to different timelines, parallel realities, different things like that. You're always going to be shifting, and the beautiful part of it with your divine counterpart, y'all shift together. Y'all shift together to different. We shift to me and Joe shift to the same timeline. So I kind of take on the role of making sure that our alignment is always where it needs to be. Or when we're getting different downloads, or let's say this planet decides it wants to turn backwards and do 3 backwards flips, and we got to adjust and integrate all these different energies. I'll be the first one to feel it, to make sure that whatever needs to be collapsed or cleared out of our alignment, that we're both in that alignment process.
We do feel it sometimes. Sometimes we're like, what now? Can we not just have a day?
Yeah,
just
it's like, what?
And that together.
Like, what alchemy do we have to do today?
We could be like, oh, let's take a day trip. Then we're there, and it's like, jump. And it's like, ugh.
What's coming up to be released now? So, but it's definitely a beautiful process, because like we've kind of relaxed into kind of like our roles. Where like I'll maintain our alignment, and then Joe will release whatever I break, and then we'll just always still shift and be on that same frequency and shift together. So
this is changing the subject a little bit, but Hala, I got a light language Reiki session from her last week, and it felt amazing while she was doing it. And then I cried myself to sleep that night, and I cried the next day. But then I felt the release, and I felt amazing, and I've felt a lot more balanced since then. So like I do the energy healing on myself, but sometimes you just need that
extra.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Joe, this is from Lady Tabs. Joe, how did you manage to do this? To watch him do this and go through this? So that must be talking about when he was going through his dark night of the soul. And if I'm wrong, put it in the comments.
I mean, for me, I always agree. Like when we would go through the periods, when he was going through like the periods of not being able to talk to me, it would hurt. I would feel it, but I do feel like within these dynamics as well, I think a lot's put onto the running and chasing side of it, which I don't agree with. So I would just give him his space, you know, because like you say, you always feel that connection. I could always feel in there, but I would just give him the space to do it, because it's not like he was there in front of me, because when he was going through it, I was in the UK and he was in Detroit. So it's not like we was in physical union for me to sort of have to see him going through it and be like, oh, you know, is there anything I can do? I would always say to him, you know, if there's anything I can do, let me know, you know, like speak light language or whatever. But for the main point, like I say to everyone, you need to remember, these journeys aren't just like, it's not just my journey, you know, it's his journey as well. And there's certain things that he needs to go through and learn on his own too. So it was a lot of stuff he was sort of dealing with as well. So all you can do is just offer that support and a level of light from afar, and just make them know that, you know, you are there. If you need me, I'm there, you know. And then for the best part, I was just obviously still going within myself, you know, giving myself like light language and that, obviously knowing from me feeling it, he will also feel it as well. And then for the main part, just carrying on with your life until you're lying back to speak again.
And then one thing I will add, in those periods, from a divine masculine perspective of those aspects, if your divine masculine withdraws or there's something that was brought up, it's intense for us. Reason why we pull back is because it's kind of like to avoid double pain channeling, because like I would want to talk to Joe, but what was surfacing within my energy bodies when I would try to communicate with her, it would amplify the pain that I was feeling. But it wasn't until I realized that me kind of looking in that mirror was actually supporting the process of it coming up. So before, I used to try to do it by myself or do the healing work on my own. So I would withdraw, because the universe made me not be codependent upon Joe for my healing prior to she got brought into my life. So I had got so accustomed to healing on my own, or that it wasn't normal. In a lot of my relationship dynamics, when I used to try to heal with my partners, I would get rejected. So I became accustomed to, oh, healing is something you're supposed to do on your own, and you don't need your partner to do it. So even when Joe would try to offer to help,
like, no,
I'm like, no, I can do it on my own. I want to do it on my own, because I used to be kind of codependent like that, to where I would wanted her to help me, but I'm like, no, I can do it alone. And I would withdraw from the connection. And all that time I was just simply focusing on my healing. But then when those energies or whatever came up, because there's different layers that would happen. So, you know, when throughout my dark night of the soul, certain layers would come up. And then when I would clear them, I will always be drawn back to communicate with Joe, or we will always be drawn back to the same timeline.
It's like, even to the point when we weren't talking, it weren't that we weren't talking at all. It's like, even if we weren't talking like through video, he would still sort of be checking in with text, you know, like, hi, how are you, what are you doing? And I'd be like, oh, you're going to speak later? Oh, I'll see, you know, so he would still sort of check in every now and then. He hadn't sort of literally just disappeared, but it was, I just let it to him, you know, I let him do it at his own time, his own pace, just give him the space, and just, like I said, he knew I was there. And
then when I would collapse and clear stuff, I would, even on a soul level, feel a pull to come back to Joe's timeline. And then, but I noticed that at each interval from when we would come back to the same timeline, she always felt like how I felt. So both sides feels the alignment, and then both sides have the ability to kind of simulate the other's reality. So if, let's say, for example, I was having a big solar plexus clearing, you know, with Joe being my emotion, she has the ability to help assist and clear those things out on her end, which will support the masculine. And then the masculine also breaking it for himself supports the feminine. So it's almost like a partnership. And working through it. But for some people, it can be really intense, you know, when they do go into those periods. It's like, we're in separation timeline. It's not really that. It's just there's an inner alchemy process that's taking place. And then as soon as those energies are collapsed, the two of you, if this is the person you're connected to, y'all will be drawn back together. And they want to communicate just as much as you want to communicate. It's from both sides.
I don't even like to call it separation. I call it misalignment.
It's,
you know,
it's just a misalignment. It's just a misalignment.
You know, people think with this separation, and when it's like, no, because even now, even when we're going through, we can say little separations, even though you can still be in the same house, you know, but you might have rooms because you're not in a separation. There's just a misalignment, you know, and you need to go in and bring that alignment back. So I don't even like the word separation in these unions.
Yeah, because it's
I don't like runner and chaser.
Joe didn't chase, and then it's interesting because like it's not that Joe didn't chase me, and I wasn't running for myself. So by me having that,
because if you chase, what are they going to do if you're chasing them? They're going to run.
Right. So it's like I wasn't running for myself. Joe wasn't chasing. It's just we would have intervals though where we were like bouncing off of each other like this. Until enough was cleared out of our energy bodies to where it was like the gaps got a little bit lesser, and we were able to kind of stay on the same timeline, or be able to withstand the frequency of being on the same timeline. But it's interesting because when I would have those moments, I wanted to talk to Joe, but it's like where my energy body was, it would repel me off the timeline because of how painful it was based on what was coming up within me and what needed to clear. And
it's
then I
like a
started
form of
surrendering.
protection in a way, because if he was to speak to me whilst he was going through what he was going through, he would have been talking to me through pain. So he's going to project that pain to me. So that's when he's more likely going to say something that he doesn't mean that's going to hurt me. So then it's just going to take you further apart. So in a way, having that repulsion to want to talk, in a way, is the universe and your guides protecting both of you, protecting that union. Because it's like, if you talk to her now, you're going to be talking to her from a place of pain. You're not going to be talking from a place of love. And then it's going to hit her
and then hit me.
And then it's going to literally slap me, which is then going to slap him.
I experienced that before when I was in the midst of communicating from pain, and I would communicate to Joe, and then it's like I was hurting myself, and it was hurting me so much. That's why I was like, I got to the point where I had to learn how not to project what I was releasing onto Joe so that I wouldn't hurt her and bounce back and then hit me. So it was a lot that I had to adjust to in regards to, first, for the most part, establishing more so of a healthier relationship dynamic with myself and my mirror, for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hala had another question. Do you find that the emotional release aligns with the menstrual cycle?
Yeah.
I mean, we will release. I do find that the deeper releases that we have is normally around my cycle. And we'll feel it coming. You know, you can sort of feel it coming. Jay can feel it coming. Whenever I'm coming to my cycle, he'll be like, "Oh, there's something in my sacral," or "Oh, I'm feeling something in my." I'm like, "Well, I am due on."
Yeah, when she's on her period, it's kind of like.
He has a period as well.
It's like I have an energetic cleanse because she's dropping and releasing all this energy. And it's like my energy bodies are not being forced to keep up with where she's shifting. But then I'll be kind of like pushed to then drop all these different emotions and clear out. And then in the process of her cycle, I kind of get renewed emotionally as well.
We didn't realize at first, but then we sort of started. It was Jay that noticed it, because you know what I've noticed? I react to your cycle. I've noticed I go through this when you're on your period, and that's the only time. And I'm and it's like he's on a period as well. He's energetically releasing. I'm physically releasing. He's energetically. So we're both moody.
And it'll push me to, because it's like she's releasing physically and her vibration is increasing, and it's like I get kind of pulled along to kind of match her to what she's releasing. So it'll cause different shifts with me. And I made a few posts about how men are connected to the menstrual cycle of their divine feminine, and when the divine feminine is in that period, that both sides it's a purification process that's taking place for both sides. I made a lot of posts about that in the past. I probably need to revisit that topic for a lot of people.
I'm pretty sure I've seen those. I love those Papa Woke posts.
He loves doing that. He loves doing that.
I love Joe's menstrual cycle. It's one of my favorite times. I actually be looking forward to it more than she does.
He knows it more than me. It's like, how long now? I think, what, about 3-4 days? I'm like, I don't know, because I've got and then I'll look on the period track and I'm like, yeah, it is 3-4 days. How did you know?
It's so funny.
I love that. Yeah, a lot of people are glad that you brought this up because they have noticed it as well. I keep trying to scroll up because I think it was one with the divine had some questions in the beginning, but she never put them in the question box. I know that was something.
Her question was about dreaming.
Yes, dreams.
Please share something about dreams.
My journey was different with that because I did, when I used to do a lot of research and read about it, a lot of people do be having a lot of astral experiences with them. I had a lot of things. It's like until I was able to clear myself completely of my past, I didn't start having dreams about Joe until I was in a cleared state, because a lot of my dreams were consisting of me purging, and because I was doing a lot of healing in my sleep cycle. So a lot of, for me personally, but I do know that this happens for other people. But on my particular journey, as far as with my dreams, I had a lot of releasing of my past that took place because I was still clearing out a lot from my past. And then once I got to a clear state where I could energetically have more space for Joe is when I started kind of having those subconscious dreams, or that subconscious astral communication where she would pop up in my dreams. But mine was a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I'm one of those people that obviously I know I dream, but I don't tend to always remember my dreams, or if I do, it's like dreams from like early morning, just as I'm waking up. I mean, I've noticed that they are starting to become more frequent, and I am starting to remember them a lot more. But I do go through a lot of deja vus when I'm with Jay. A hell of a lot of deja vus. We both do like, I just had a deja vu. So
we'd be like, did we do this before? Have we been on this timeline? Yeah,
we know we've been on the journey together quite a few times. We reckon like the deja vus, we've got to certain points where we've probably exited the timeline together, and then the universe is like, oh God, here we go, send them back again.
It's like, you know, sometimes we feel like on our journey where we've shifted to like parallel universes or parallel realities of different events, because it's such a multi-dimensional connection to where sometimes we feel like we've lived certain stuff or done certain stuff already, and we're going through it again. We'll have moments like that too sometimes, where the deja vu will be so intense. I'm like, Joe, why do I feel like we've seen this movie before? Or why do I feel like we've been on this timeline before? Or why do I feel like we've done this or we've done that? Or I'm like, well, maybe maybe we've on a different timeline, you know, we've made it so far, and then we shifted to this timeline, and now we're going through it again so we can get farther.
Yeah, and we've noticed that they're getting more frequent and more closer together, so we feel like we're going to hopefully at this time get to the point where, you know, we're then going to continue on the solo one where we've not had to revisit and continue.
Revisit nothing, yeah. So it's weird. Yeah, we have that. It's weird when that kind of comes up because it's so strong, and it was confusing for me at one point because I'm like, Joe, I feel like it's like when I got to my union timeline, I'm like, have we been on this timeline before with each other? Like, why does this feel so familiar? Why does this is just? But it's just like all of it all collapse. It's like almost like time just collapsing into one moment, one big multi-dimensional moment.
It's really because it's like even when Jay first came over, I remember we were all sitting on the settee, and like one of my daughters still lives with us. The other two obviously don't, but they obviously come around to sort of meet Jay. And I'll always remember my youngest one just sat there and was just like, I feel like Jay's been here before. I feel like he's always been here. I feel like at some point we're going to come across a family picture and he's going to be there. Yeah. And it was just really weird to hear, especially to hear it from her. You know, if it was like any of the other two, I'd be like, oh yeah, but to hear it from her, to say that really sort of said, yeah, there's something different about this.
And I think they were also feeling with me and Joe being the same person, because they probably felt that me and Joe had the same vibration. So she was just like, I feel like you just always been here. And then I'm just like, and in my mind, I'm like, because me and your mom were the same person.
I kind of have
so it's like, in some way, unconsciously, I have been. It's just, I just was in a different part of the universe, living life and doing this. And then now we're on the same timeline. So it's just kind of interesting because I do feel connections with each one of her kids, because I don't have children. But I do feel connections with each one of her kids in a way. And so, because I know a lot of people message me that do have kids that have kids and had kids previously on before they met their counterpart, and they'll have a fear like, oh, is my counterpart, you know, I have a fear like that. I was like, no, it's like, trust me, your divine counterpart, if you did have kids outside of your union, they're going to feel a connection to those kids, or they're going to have some type of energetic connection, something like that. So yeah. It's more common than people realize that people do have children prior to meeting, or children in different other, you know, previous marriages, previous relationships.
Especially if you've got an age distance. Age difference.
We have a pretty, we're 19 years apart, but you couldn't tell because we act so much the same.
I look the youngest one.
Oh gosh. And then sometimes we joke, we're like, I'm actually, even though I'm 19 years younger, I kind of act like the older one in some instances too. And I've never dated someone older than me. That's why this connection was it was so different for me. Even though there was an age difference, I'm like, we just felt like the same person. So yeah, that was one.
And you do feel like you're the same age to me, you know, me talking to you.
But that's the thing, you are, because when you think about it, the ages we go by here is just the 3D realm. It's just the physical body. Soulfully, we're actually the same age. You know, you're the same age.
Right.
And you find once you connect, it's like, I think you don't even feel like you're aging anymore, you know. It's like you sort of look, it's like, I don't know if anyone else says it, but I'll look at other people that are sort of my age and think, I don't look old like that, like as old as they do, or something like that. And I feel like when you're together as well in union, it sort of stops the aging process. Or, you know, like Benjamin Button, you know, are we going to get younger?
No, I've been noticing that just with Ascension. I'm not in physical union, but
Yeah.
with Ascension, I'm like, I feel like I'm younger than I
Yeah.
was 15 years ago, you
Yeah.
know? So we have one more question. Blake Olive wants to know, do you experience any heart pull sensations when feeling each other's energies?
Yeah. I do. I feel we it's like we said, we feel like it's a hard word to say because it's not like in any form of attachment, but we feel addicted to each other. It's like we can't be apart from each other. Even to the point like, oh, don't go into the kitchen without me. You know, it's weird. And the only way we can explain it as
It's like,
well is like when Jay went to visit his family, you know, the pain we felt being apart was like bearable.
I had planned
We
to go
wasn't
home.
prepared for it. It was
No,
just
we didn't even know. It's like
crazy.
I had planned to go home because, you know, obviously I just abruptly left my family to move over here. So I was just going home normal to visit my family. I had planned to go home for like 6 weeks because I had been gone for like 6 or 7 months. And I had to cut my 6 week trip down to 4 days because it was so energetically
4 days.
4 days. So my family was like, "You're leaving already?" Because I couldn't explain to them what I was feeling internally. And it wasn't like something out of like a codependency attachment or something. Like my spirit literally felt like it was ripped in two. And I felt like, I was in an energetic state of pain, and I felt like I was giving off pain to my environment, and I didn't like it, and it was so intense, and it
And
was
it was the
so
same for
loud.
me as well. I
It
was
was
older
so
here.
loud, and I'm just like, I couldn't even enjoy being around my family
Function.
because, or even function because my spirit felt like it was ripped into two pieces of paper, and so is I think that was like our guides trying to get us back to the same timeline because we weren't supposed to come off of our union timeline just yet for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it's like, well, you
Um,
can travel, you can visit, but you have to go together.
yes,
Wherever you go,
we
you
have
have
to
to
go
go together.
together. So we're
You
not,
know.
yeah, we're not doing that again. And so then I just literally, I changed, first I changed my flight to like, all right, I'm gonna stay for a week. I'm not gonna stay for 6 weeks. But then I woke up that next day, that fourth day of the being there, and I'm like, no, I caught her like, no, change it till tomorrow. I'm like, I have to come back because I can't even sleep. It's so unbearable.
And
And
we felt really bad. We felt guilty because it's like his family obviously wanted to see him.
yeah,
I felt
Yeah.
bad because I'm thinking, are they going to feel bad at me, thinking that I'm just trying to steal him back? And it's like we really
no,
tried. We
we
really
really
tried to
tried,
make it.
but
I
it's
was
just
like, you know, try
us
to stay
being
a bit longer, but
us
we
being
just couldn't
apart,
do
we
it.
couldn't
We
do
just
it.
couldn't do
Even
it.
though even every advanced techniques I have to balance myself out, do shadow work, nothing was working. And it wasn't until I came back to the timeline that it just dissipated. So I just think because of you know, these unions are very powerful right now and then they're needed on the planet. But for us, I just think we're just meant to be on the same timeline right now to kind of, you know, just assist whatever energetically with the collective or the earth or whatever. But the universe, like our guys, like our bodies, our spirits was like, no, we need y'all back on the same timeline now. And they made me change my flight. Like not made me, but I could not withstand it. And like I'm a very independent person. Like I just wanted to go home and visit my family, but I couldn't do it energetically. It was just too overwhelming. So I did come back, and like I said, we've been on the same, kind of like inseparable, inseparable in a way. And it's like, so I'll be trying to understand sometimes too, because you know we've been on our union timeline. We met for the first time. I do know that some people, their divine unions are more local. Some people's are in different countries. Some people are different cities, states. Everyone's journey is different, but like the core concepts of what we have to face within a journey can kind of be similar or the same. But everyone's union process is very different because I've known people that have, you know, like I have a friend, they were both in the United States, they were just in different parts, and he ended up moving to be with he moved from Connecticut to California to go into his union with his divine feminine. And then I moved over here, but then I also have a group of people who met in the same city, same state, and stuff like that, and went through their union process. So it's just, I think it's just dependent upon
You needed.
where the twins are needed on a grid. And so I think right now we're just needed in the UK right now, which is
Which is the
why
heart grid.
I think we're in the heart chakra grid. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I will say this one thing: like I've always described it from a masculine point of view. It feels like my emotions came out of my body and came to life. So it's like when I hold, like let's say me and Joe are cuddling and I'm holding her, I feel like I'm holding my frequency or I'm holding myself as like I'm able
Taking
to
care of his emotions.
taking care of my emotions in physical form or like I'm holding. So it's like how I feel inside my body is like how I feel in Joe's body when I'm holding her, but it just feels like even though our skin may be like a layer that separates us, but it feels like we're just in one big gigantic bubble, or like a ball of just one synergy, one energy.
And he's like my energy, he's my action, he's my get go. I just feel like a little backpack on him. He's
You're
a little
back in your
emotional
cosmic
backpack.
Yeah. She does.
Just hold on to like, right, let's go shopping. Let's hold on
Yeah,
to
so just like, but I love it because it just literally feels like, so it's like the relationship I have with myself and my emotions definitely impacts the relationship that I have with Joe, with her being that physical, like that physical aspect of my emotions. And I love it because it's like the more I take care of myself and take care of Joe, it's like I'm taking care of myself. But then if I was to, let's say, do something to cause Joe an emotional imbalance or cause her pain or something like that, it immediately hits my emotional bodies. So it's just like, it's different. But that was one of the core lessons when we were in that alignment process that made me started waking up to the connection, because I was trying to just be on my, for the first time in my life, because I've always been in relationship after relationship. I was just trying to, spend that independent time alone. It wasn't like I was running from the connection. I just had finally regained my independence, but then the universe just brought her into my life to where I'm just, and so it's like when I would try to take a step back to really just ultimately work on myself, I would notice I would feel that disconnect, or like, why does when I do stuff or pull from her, it hurts me? Why is it hurting me on a soul level? It was like, why do I feel pain? Or like when I would try to even hang out with some of my exes or anything like that, it's like my spirit would get so upset. My stomach would drop to like the center of the earth. Like, no, you're not supposed to be on a timeline with this person. Get away from them. Get off this timeline. And no, stop talking to them. Move away from them. And then I would be brought back to those timeline, and I would feel like my life was moving forward. So it's like, and that's interesting too, the few times where I would kind of not redirect off our path a little bit, but come off that timeline. It's like my life was like in a loop. And then when I would come back and be on a timeline with Joe, it's like my life was moving forward. So I would energetically feel that. So for people that, because I know a variety of different things that may happen in this process with these journeys, but your person, when a masculine encounters their divine feminine in the physical, or y'all cross paths, they go through these different activations, and there's nothing you can do to sever that connection. There's nothing a feminine can do to self-sabotage that connection. There's nothing a masculine can do to self-sabotage that connection. Once you physically cross paths in the physical, that union,
even when
your
you're going
union
through
body,
stuff and collapsing stuff,
there's
you would
nothing you
always
can
be drawn
do.
back together.
There's nothing you can
always.
do to, because I know a lot of people say, I feel like I ruined my chance with my person. There's nothing you can do, because y'all so energetically connected. And when y'all do cross paths, y'all the union body that the two of you share starts the activation process of merging you into one being. To one, just I like to call it one mega being, one mega person,
One mega mind.
One mega mind. It's like you mentally merge, you emotionally merge, you energetically merge, you spiritually merge. Like I feel like it's weird and it freaks me out sometimes, but I be so freaked out by our connection sometimes in a good way, because it's like I feel like I expanded into two people, is what it feels like. Yeah, for
I
me.
love that.
Yeah.
So Andy Design Interior said, I definitely feel like my DM emotions. I will often feel, what did I do?
Often feel anxiety or a pain in my heart that I know is not mine. I feel like I am transmuting my DM's painful emotions in that moment.
And
Yeah.
you are
Anxiety.
100%, and that's why I be trying to express. It's kind of like the divine feminine is the divine masculine's emotion, because y'all are one essence, one energy. So in truth, the divine feminines are kind of like the masculine's emotions, which is why when we're emotionally releasing different stuff, the divine feminine will always pick up and know what their masculine is releasing or what they're purging. But then that's how you can assist one another, because sometimes
they'll feel it and collapse it, and then it transmutes to you, and you release it.
Y'all release it for
in the
us.
emotional body.
But then that's also why we can feel stuff within our divine feminine's alignment, because y'all are our emotions. So if there's something that needs to be collapsed or addressed, we have the ability to reconstruct our divine feminine into a higher alignment.
Yeah. That's why even when you say you can feel the anxiety, I always say, look at yourself as well. Is there something that's being mirroring to you that's maybe within you that you need to release? Because maybe they're feeling your emotional body. It might not always be them first. It could be just something within you as well that needs to be released.
Yeah.
And they're mirroring that to you.
Yeah, because we mirror stuff to each other. And there's times where I can feel in Joe, I'm like, nah, Joe, we need to, let's collapse this, let's work that. But then I can go within myself and reconstruct my alignment to pull her into that higher timeline with me. So, and a lot of the times along the journey, the divine masculine, we are tasked to reconstruct our divine feminine into a higher alignment. And we can do that by addressing our alignment as well, because of how interconnected the two of you are.
I love that. I love you both. Thank you so much for being here. This was so
Of course.
beautiful.
Of course. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you for having us.
And I love you all. Thank you for joining us today. I will be sharing this on the page. Do you want me to tag? Which one should I tag as the
If
collaborator?
you want,
Do.
you can tag me as a collaborator, so then it can also upload on my feed as well.
Okay,
And then
great.
I'll tag. I can either tag Joe. You can tag Joe in the actual post, but then invite me to be a collaborator, so it can come
Okay.
up on my feed as well.
Yes, thank you all for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. It's so beautiful and inspirational, and yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed
Yeah.
this. See, Joe, we're meant to be doing more lives and talking with people, and so we're going to be
Yeah.
doing this a lot. So we've actually started more frequently and consistently doing like our twin divine union support lives and just answering questions and stuff. And we really enjoy speaking with a lot of different people. So we'll definitely be doing more lives
Yeah.
independently as well to just be of assistance to kind of support people and let people know that it's possible. These unions are very much possible, but right now everyone's being brought together and going through those merging processes.
It's just like we say though, you have to do the work. You can't. You have to do it. No one's exempt. And it's not easy. It's not always easy having to face yourself. It can get quite dark sometimes. But like they say, after the storm comes the sun. You know, you have to do the work.
And I don't care what nobody say. Divine masculine wants union just as much as the feminine.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking. Yeah. I'm telling y'all this from my heart. We want our
we definitely
just
agree. You know, like the masculines are like getting more of a voice. You know, because this has been dominantly a feminine sort of domain within the spiritual side of things, but we are noticing now that there are a lot more there's a lot of conscious masculines out there. There really is. You know, it's just they've never really had that platform to have the voice or be able to share their experiences and not feel judged or anything. But obviously it's becoming more aware now, you know, and Jay's helping that as well. He's doing like masculine support as well, you know, for masculines out there. If any of them have got any like questions or needy services, just DM him. You know, he's there to support the masculines as well, to help them rise.
Yes. So thank you.
I really appreciate what you're doing for the collective. It's beautiful.
We appreciate you as well. Thank you for holding these spaces for these
Hello, boy. Yeah, just DM if you wanna.
Yeah, I would love to see you guys go back and forth with your light languages. Yeah. It would be beautiful.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah, just give us a message.
All right. I love you.
All right. Love you
bye.
too. Have a great day.
Bye.
All right. Peace and love.